All right, everybody, welcome back. You ever wonder how these massive construction projects deal with, like, crazy, unpredictable events? I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking earthquakes, pandemics, maybe even government shutdowns, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's
Today, we are diving
I think
deep
always a risk. Yeah.
into force majeure.
Yes.
It's a clause that can really make or break a contract when something unexpected happens.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine you're in the middle of building this, I don't know, huge skyscraper.
Right.
Suddenly, bam, a massive flood hits.
Oh, wow.
That's where this force majeure thing steps in. It's basically a safety net written right into these contracts
Right.
to protect both sides when things go really, really sideways.
Yeah.
And, we're focusing specifically on how these force majeure clauses work
Okay.
within CCDC contracts. That's kind of the standard for the whole construction industry.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So we'll unpack exactly what qualifies as a force majeure event, how it impacts timelines, all the costs involved, and the steps you got to take to navigate these, kind of truggy situations.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So when we talk about these force majeure events,
Yeah.
what exactly are we talking about?
Right. So it's not just, any unexpected event, right?
Yeah.
It has to be something truly outside of anyone's control,
Okay.
right? So think natural disasters, extreme weather events, pandemics.
Oh, so like the recent COVID situation. I mean, I can only imagine.
Exactly. Exactly.
Projects must have been thrown into chaos.
Yeah. It was a very interesting time for the construction industry, for sure. And that's why that clear wording in the contract is so crucial,
Yeah.
right? Some contracts might list very specific events that qualify, while others will be a lot broader.
Okay.
And this can make a really big difference if a dispute arises.
So let's say one contract says, okay, a hurricane is considered force majeure, but a blizzard isn't.
Right.
And another one just says, hey, any natural disaster.
Exactly.
And they just kind of leave it at that.
Yep. And then if a blizzard hits and your contract's super specific,
Oh, no.
you might be in trouble.
Yeah.
So it's really important to understand what your contract covers before you even start.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's say a hurricane does hit, right?
Hmm.
The project gets delayed.
Hmm.
What happens then? Does everybody just kind of sit around and wait for the storm to pass?
Well, you want to make sure everyone's safe, first and foremost.
Yeah, of course, of course.
But yeah, you bring up a good point. What about the costs, right?
Yeah, all those extra costs that are
Yeah.
piling up.
Right.
Who's paying for all of that?
So that's where, these CCDC contracts, they're widely used in Canada, and they're actually really good in these situations.
Okay.
They have a very well-defined framework for dealing with this. First off, they allow for reasonable time extensions because of these events.
Right.
So the contractor isn't, penalized for something outside their control.
That makes sense. But, I mean, even with the time extension, doesn't the contractor still lose money because of the delay?
Yeah, that's a good question.
They've still got people to pay. Equipment's just sitting there.
Right.
It just seems like somebody has to eat those costs.
Right. And you're right. Those costs don't just go away, right?
Yeah.
That's where things can get a little complicated.
Oh, boy.
So typically, the contractor has to absorb the costs that are directly related to that delay.
Okay.
Things like overhead, labor for that extra time period.
Okay.
However, if the force majeure event directly costs some extra work, like let's say you have to do repairs now because a structure was damaged,
Oh, right.
that would be the responsibility of the owner.
Okay. So it just sounds like there's a lot of room for disagreements, maybe even legal battles in these situations.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not uncommon. Force majeure claims can be complex
Yeah.
and, lead to disputes, especially when it's not super clear who's responsible for certain costs.
So if you find yourself in the middle of this, it's like the most important thing to remember.
I think the two most important things are documentation and communication.
Okay.
First, you got to document everything.
Okay.
Meticulous records of the event,
Mm.
how it impacted the project, any extra costs, all communications. It's like building a fortress of evidence.
Right, because you're going to need to prove that this wasn't just, bad planning or something.
Exactly, exactly. And then the second thing is communication.
Yeah.
You got to notify the owner immediately in writing about the event and how it might impact the project.
Right.
Don't wait. Communicate clearly and quickly. CCDC contracts are really specific about these timelines for notifications, so follow those.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's not just about sitting back and waiting, right?
No.
You got to be proactive too, don't you?
Exactly, yeah. While you can't control the event itself, you can control how you respond.
Right.
So you can explore alternative solutions, see if you can get materials from somewhere else, maybe adjust the schedule to make up for some lost time.
Yeah.
Just show that you're taking steps to, lessen the impact.
Right, right. So it's like a combo of careful planning, clear communication, and a little bit of creative problem solving.
Exactly.
Well, there you have it. That's a look into the world of these force majeure clauses.
Yeah.
They're meant to be a safety net when something unpredictable happens, but as we've seen, they can be pretty complex.
Yeah. And, it really makes you wonder with climate change and, so much uncertainty in the world, how are these clauses going to evolve? I mean, can they handle these potentially bigger and more frequent disruptions that might be coming in the future?
That's a great question to think about. And folks, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but be sure to check back in for more. And until then, thanks for listening.